Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, we tackle the issues, we clarify matters, and we get on point. Vice President Sara Duterte now faces 3 impeachment complaints. Meanwhile, the House Committee on Justice formally junks the ouster cases junks the impeachment cases against President Bongbong Marcos. Is there still a chance to reverse this decision at the plenary? Let's get on point with House Justice Committee Chair, Batangas Representative Gerville Luistro. Congresswoman, it's good to have you again. Welcome to the show. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Thank you, Pinky, and good evening to all our viewers.
Let's start with the Marcos impeachment complaints. Today, the House Justice Committee approved the committee report, junking the 2 impeachment complaints as insufficient in substance. Of course, we're referring to the De Jesus and Maza et al. Complaints. Congresswoman, does this already constitute a formal dismissal of the complaints?
The formal dismissal is actually incorporated in the resolution accompanying the committee report, no? So, ang sinasabi ng committee report is our findings that both complaints are insufficient in substance, okay? And because of this, we came up with a resolution dismissing actually the 2 impeachment complaints, no? Nevertheless, this committee report with its accompanying resolution are still subject to the approval/disapproval of the plenary. And that can be done by at least 1/3 votes of all the members of the House of Representatives.
Congresswoman, kailan po ito dadalhin sa plenaryo?
Well, actually, we have transmitted already to the Committee on Rules the committee report along with the resolution, no? Transmitted na siya today. As to when the same will be included in the order of business of the plenary, it all depends on the Committee on Rules. But we should be ready because anytime it may be included in the order of business.
I remember, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that really you had about 60 days under the rules or the Constitution to come up with a report. And certainly after what, was it 4 days of hearings? The last being Wednesday or Thursday, pasensya na po, ay nagkaroon na po kayo ng committee report. What I'm trying to say is, medyo mabilis po ito.
Well, it's because the entire process was not actually done in view of the prior determination of insufficiency in substance. Maalala mo, Pinky, I've been discussing it in our previous interviews, no? In different media, no? Dapat makalusot sa standard ng sufficiency in form at dapat makalusot sa standard ng sufficiency in substance for us to be able to move forward to step 3, 4, and 5. But what happened in the impeachment complaints against President Bongbong Marcos Jr., pasado siya sa form, that is our step 1. However, bumagsak siya sa sufficiency in substance. So, in effect, na-abrogate yung succeeding steps which are supposed to be part of our entire process before the Justice Committee, no? You are correct about the 60 session days. The Justice Committee is actually given under the rules a period of 60 session days to be able to conclude the deliberation, to determine the existence of probable cause, and to submit our committee report to the plenary. But then again, because bumagsak na sa test ng sufficiency in substance, we need not proceed to step 3, to step 4, and even to step 5. That's what happened, Pinky.
Congresswoman, there were appeals, last-minute appeals. Of course, there were some members of the House Justice Committee unhappy with the insufficiency in substance, especially of the Lisa et al. Impeachment complaint. It was Congressman Tino, I believe, and also Congressman Edgar Erice, who had issued some last-minute appeals. Basically, Congressman Tino was saying that it was an incomplete discussion of what was being called the BBM parametrics, which form part of their impeachment complaint. Sabi nila, yun po ang naging daan ng substandard at mga ghost projects. Also, Congressman Erice basically saying that the MASA complaint also included an allegation supposedly from former Undersecretary Bernardo about an 8 billion peso supposed kickback for the president. Yun pong dalawang yon. What was the response to that, to those last-minute statements?
Well, Pinky, it is actually not expected that all the details will be included in the committee report, no? The committee report is supposed to reflect only the summary of what happened during the deliberation. As a matter of fact, nag-comment pa nga si Congressman Rodriguez, Chairman Rufus Rodriguez, that even the fact that the video of then Congressman Saldico, that the same was not authenticated, was not likewise included in the committee report. But nonetheless, in view of the fact that it is a committee report which is not supposed to include every detail of what happened in the deliberation, he is not questioning the sufficiency of the committee report, no? So, on that light, Pinky, no, we allowed the members, specifically Honorable Tino and Honorable Erice and even Honorable Co, to make their corresponding manifestations to that effect. But nevertheless, those concerns which were raised have been fully ventilated during the deliberation on the sufficiency in substance. And if the point really is they want it to be incorporated in the committee report, well, it is the Justice Committee is reminded again that by practice, we do not incorporate every detail in the committee report. What is important, the impeachment complaint, which is supposed to include every and all arguments of the endorsers, form part of the records of our proceedings, no? So on that ground, Pinky, we proceeded to the voting of the motion for the approval of the committee report along with its accompanying resolution.
Okay. And I think the vote was 39, 4, and 0. 39 in favor.
That is correct.
4 against, and 0 abstentions. Just very quickly, just want to talk about the grounds for the impeachment: betrayal of public trust, culpable violation of the Constitution. Meron pong yung unang complaint also allowing the kidnapping and the surrender of FPRRD to The Hague, and of course that issue on being a drug user or alleged drug addict. And then, as I mentioned a while ago, which was quite new to a lot of people, yung tinatawag na baseline balance managed, yung BBM parametrics formula, na gaya nung sinabi ko kanina, Congresswoman, basically allowed these ghost, substandard, and overpriced flood management projects. With regards to that, I have a few questions on that. Yung statements ho ba, excuse me ma'am, of Yusek Bernardo alleging that the Office of the Executive Secretary asking for insertions, yung pong supposed kickbacks given to Yusek, Trigiv Olivar, supposed kickbacks, and also Yusek or ASEC Bersamin. How did that come into play in terms of not finding it sufficient in substance?
Well, first and foremost, Pinky, we have to be reminded about the requirement of personal knowledge and or sufficient record, no? Ang ating complainant kay De Jesus, that is Attorney Andre De Jesus, apparently is not part of any of those incidents alleged in his impeachment complaint. So therefore, according to the members, personal knowledge cannot be claimed, no? With respect to the authentic records, it appears that most of the attachments, not only in the De Jesus complaint, but even in the Masa et al. Complaint, are clippings of news, videos, and transcripts which are not certified or authenticated. So, at least on this first ground, that the allegations of facts should be based on personal knowledge and or authentic records, nag-fail na kaagad itong dalawang impeachment complaints. Secondly, no, meron tayong tinatawag diyang ultimate facts instead of conclusion of facts. Dapat ang allegations sa complaint should be essential to constitute an offense which will further constitute a ground for impeachment. The parameter, Pinky, is it should be able to answer the questions what, when, where, how. Okay? So on the basis of the allegations in both complaints, according to the members again, the allegations do not constitute ultimate facts or essential facts. Instead, it only jumps into conclusion of facts, which is not allowed in the impeachment complaint. No?
Sorry, ma'am, I need to interrupt you there because I heard that a lot during the hearing, and it was also a question for me because one can also think that there was a difference. These words were being used all the time, yung that is a legal conclusion and that is not a factual allegation. Yun po yung mga sinasabi, which is exactly what you're talking about right now. And then there's also that school of thought that ito po ay mga alegasyon, kaya pag pumunta tayo sa paglilitis, ay doon lalabas ang mga factual allegations. But please explain to us, what is the difference and what constitutes a legal conclusion versus a factual allegation?
When we speak about factual allegation, Pinky, it should provide the specific details on how an offense was actually committed. As I have said earlier, it should be able to answer the questions like what,
when, where, how.
Where, how.
Okay.
So you will recall some of the members were asking, what is the specific offense that was committed by the impeachable official? When was this committed? Where was this committed? What was the circumstances surrounding that incident when the impeachable official committed actually this offense? So pag sinabi natin, Pinking ultimate facts, it means essential to be able to constitute the offense as distinguished from conclusion, which means you just made a bare allegation that the impeachable official is guilty of graft and corruption without necessarily providing the specifics of the incidents which are being alleged.
I see. All right. And then there were also a lot of talks on ano ho ba, paano nyo nakuha ito, yung inyong mga ebidensya, not you, during the hearing. This constitutes, I'm sorry ma'am, I have a bit of a cough, news clippings, yun po, another phrase that was used, versus authentic records. Also,
yes.
Congresswoman, I know what news clippings are, but my question is, are news clippings going to be allowed, or can they serve as evidence to substantiate a ground for an impeachable offense?
Well, it is my humble submission that news clippings will not suffice the standard of authentic records, no? Kapag sinabi kasi nating authentic records yan, it should be certified by the person who actually prepared the document, okay? So, like for example, you were mentioning kanina about the affidavit or the statement of Yusek Bernardo of DPWH, no? The transcript of the Senate, if it is not certified, will not pass the standard of authenticity, all right? But if it is certified, it can only prove the fact that it is part of the records of the Senate. But as to whether or not that is indeed a testimony of Yusek Bernardo should be the one to authenticate the same. Or at least come up with his own affidavit to prove that this is my testimony, I am the one executing this, and I swear to the truthfulness of the facts of those contained in this affidavit.
To clarify before we go on a break, so any transcript, official transcripts coming from the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, for example, regarding focusing on the allegations of former DPWH Undersecretary Bernardo will not suffice unless it is what, certified by the Senate legal
That is
team?
correct.
Opo.
That
or
is correct.
the man himself, the individual himself.
That is correct. Although you have to distinguish, if the transcript of records is certified by the Senate, then it is a proof that the transcript is part of the records of the Senate. Okay? But if the affidavit itself is authenticated or sworn in by Yusek Bernardo, then it becomes a proof of the testimony of Yusek Bernardo.
All right, we need to take a very short break. We'll continue our discussion with House Committee on Justice Chair Batangas Representative Gerville Luistro. When we return, stay tuned. This is On Point. Welcome back. Still with us, House Committee on Justice Chair Batangas Representative Gerville Luistro. You know, Congresswoman, there's so much still to talk about regarding the impeachment complaint against the president, because I believe that once you tackle the impeachment cases against the vice president, the former hearings will serve as a template for how you will be discussing the vice president's impeachment complaints. So let's go to that. So far, there have been 3 impeachment complaints filed against the vice president. There were 2 supposedly already sent to the office of the speaker. I believe it was Thursday last week. Congresswoman, the 2 impeachment complaints, could these be violative of the 1-year bar rule?
Well, let us be reminded, Pinky, wala pang initiation na nangyayari, no? Walang nagbago po sa Francisco ruling in spite of the decision of the Supreme Court and the recent resolution of the Honorable Supreme Court. As of today, wala pa pong nare-refer sa Justice Committee. So in fact, hindi pa po nag-trigger yung 1-year prohibition period.
I'm asking that because when I had also the complainants here, at least one complainant, Kiko Aquino D., that was already being talked about. We know that during the July 2025 ruling of the Supreme Court, they said that basically the earliest date one can file an impeachment complaint against the vice president was going to be February 6. But after the motion for reconsideration decision of the Supreme Court, there were some legal luminaries, lawyers who said, parang nag-iba ata yung trigger ng 1-year bar rule. Because basically, in the motion for reconsideration, the Supreme Court was saying nag-umpisa na trigger yung 1-year bar rule when it was not put in the order of business the December 2 impeachment complaint. Tapos nagbilang po sila. So naging January 15. That's why I'm asking you, the 2 impeachment complaints were filed before February 6. Is that going to be a violation of what the Supreme Court had earlier stated as July 6 in their July 2025 ruling?
You are very much correct about the seemingly confusing, decision of the Supreme Court dated July 25, 2025, vis-a-vis the resolution of the Supreme Court issued on January 28 of 2026, However, we have to take consideration of the fact na doon sa July 25, 2025, it was explicit. The Supreme Court indeed pronounced February 6 pwede mag-file ng second impeachment, What is observable in the recent resolution of the Supreme Court, the January 28, 2026 resolution of the Supreme Court, they discussed that when the complaint was not acted upon by the House of Representatives and the period of 10 session days lapse, it is considered deemed initiated. Hanggang dun lang,
Yeah.
It went to the extent of saying na January 14 nag-lapse, but it didn't went to the extent of saying that January 15, they are allowed to file because it lapsed already. So what I wanted to point out, Pinky, is while in the July 2025 decision, it is explicit na February 6 pwede mag-file. Dito sa January 28, 2026 resolution, it was merely by implication, Nevertheless, I acknowledge that it creates confusion. Whether when really the 1-year prohibition period lapsed already. Whether it is February 5, so that February 6, 2026, the second impeachment is allowed? Or did it lapse January 14,
Yeah.
so that January 15, the second impeachment is allowed already. This is a matter which will be deliberated upon as well by the Justice Committee. I really hope that prior to the time of our deliberation, we will be able to find ways to seek clarification. No? But the problem is, in the recent resolution of the Supreme Court, sinabi nila, final, executory, no appeal, no petition, no
But-
MR. So,
But isn't it also true that you wanted to seek clarification regarding the session days or / calendar days? I read that maybe last week, but I have no update if you actually already sought clarification regarding the session days issue.
I was actually inquiring, Pinky, with the legal of the House Representatives how it can be possible for us to seek clarification on two matters. One is the definition of session day, and second, the lapse of the one-year prohibition period. No, but considering the pronouncement of the Supreme Court in the recent resolution that the same is final and executory, no, to this date they haven't given me any recommendation on how we can legally seek this clarification on these 2 points. No, nevertheless, we are still looking forward na sana merong avenue for us to be clarified on this.
It's almost like you're a little bit put in a bind, like someone like me, obviously, who's not a non-lawyer. I had to talk to a number of people and really understand and ask maybe 3 or 4 times, wala ba talagang nakasulat doon sa January 2026 ruling na inulit yung Feb 6 na yun ang start? Or may sinabi bang January 15, that could be the start? There was nothing. It was a mere implication. It was implied, you're right.
Correct.
And that's where even for someone like me, could that be a problem for someone like you? Because while the 2 complaints have already been forwarded rather to the Speaker, they have 10 session days by which it should be included in the order of business. This third one that was filed today, it seems like, it appears to me, pwede pa rin po siyang dapat mapasok dun sa order of business sa 10 session days. My problem is, rather not a problem, but my issue is, what are you going to do about that? Because, again, it's a little bit confusing. Are you going to tackle the 2 impeachment complaints that could, I'm just saying, could be violative of the one-year bar rule?
Well, Pinky, it will depend really on the members, no, if they will be raising these issues, no? And if we fail to reach an agreement, then all the disagreements, as you can see, are being resolved by way of the division of the House. Pinagbobotohan ng mga miyembro. And
Yeah.
I anticipate that this will be one of the issues that will really elicit heated discussions and debates among the members, and it really needs to be voted upon for us to be able to move forward.
But if you vote upon this and then the defense questions this again before the Supreme Court, you are possibly facing, a deja vu, basically, of what happened last year.
All these complications will surely be raised during the Justice Committee, no? About the 2 impeachment complaints possibly facing a petition before the Supreme Court for a possible violation of the one-year bar rule. And of course, I have this observation that talking about the safest complaint with regards to one-year bar rule, I think the safest one is the third one,
Yeah.
which is being filed.
The one filed today.
Yeah, the one filed today, because it was filed Feb 6 onwards, and it is within 10 session days then, counting from January 15.
Yeah.
So even if you consider the February 15, the January 15 or the February 6, papasok parehas itong third complaint. So I think this is the safest complaint if we are thinking about the possible complications which are brought about by confusion on the lapse of the one-year prohibition period.
Yeah. The thing is, with how the committee handled the 2 impeachment complaints against the president, I'm assuming you will be following the same process, but this time there are 3. So whether there is the 2 are questionable, the third one, as you mentioned right now, falls within that February
Safe
6th
period.
that the Supreme Court had ordered. One last question, Congresswoman, before you go. Do you still, I know that, the Supreme Court had final and executory, no appeals, but if it's a clarification, Just so everybody is aligned, is this something you still plan to do? A clarification on session days, which it appears was already clear to them, and the trigger of the one-year bar rule.
I will have to seek guidance with the Committee on Rules, Pinky, no? Sapagkat all matters concerning the rules of the House, not necessarily impeachment alone, is a matter that falls within the jurisdiction of the Committee on Rules, no? Although I've made a lot of pronouncement before, na sabi ko nga, even prior to the position of the Committee on Rules, as Justice Chair, I am inclined to observe already the pronouncements of the Supreme Court because I'm very much aware that this is a constitutional duty, and with what happened to our first impeachment complaint, I want to be as cautious as possible in order to not to face the same predicament as what the first impeachment complaint had.
Yeah, which is understandable. I mean, really, the root word there was implied. It was implied during the motion for reconsideration decision. I'm sorry, just one last question, Congressman, before you go. Sabihin po natin, umabot naman po ito doon sa fast track. Yung pong 1/3 of signatures, the House is able to secure 1/3 signatures to impeach the Vice President. Does this still, from both rulings of the Supreme Court, kailangan pa ho ba itong idaan sa Justice Committee? Kailangan ho bang dinggin, pakinggan po yung sagot ng respondent, at kailangan ho bang bigyan ng kopya ang lahat ng miyembro ng House of Representatives? Go ahead, ma'am.
In the original decision, that is July 25, 2025, the Supreme Court made a clear pronouncement that with the second mode of filing an impeachment, that is via 1/3 of all the members of the House, dapat the evidence should be attached to the complaint. The evidence should be sufficient to support the impeachment complaint. During the voting or approval, the hard copy or the physical copy of both the complaint and the evidence should be provided to the individual members. Fourth, a notice should be given to the respondent, and the respondent should be given ample time, a certain period of time to file her answer. And five, all the members should be given ample time to study, evaluate before he or she reaches his judgment on the impeachment complaint, no? That is in as far as the direct filing is concerned, no? Na pwedeng i-transmit directly to the Senate. But come this resolution dated January 28 of 2026, the Supreme Court became suggestive on the possibility that instead of transmitting it directly to the Senate, the House of Representatives, according to the decision, can consider, ibig sabihin permissive lang yon, can consider referring the impeachment complaint, even if the same is supported by at least 1/3, to the Justice Committee, at least for the purpose of ensuring three purposes, no? Ang sabi niya, 1, siguraduhin naka-attach yung evidence. 2, siguraduhin na yung physical copy ng complaint at ng evidence are provided to the individual members. And 3, according to the decision, in recognition of the prerogative of the Justice Committee to consolidate if there are 2 or more impeachment complaints. So in conclusion, Pinky, hindi ipinagbawal yung second mode. Second, allowed pa rin yung direct transmittal to the Senate. However, there are formalities that need to be followed, no? And third, 2 options are actually given by the decision of the Supreme Court. 1, hindi dadaan sa Justice Committee. And the second option is idadaan sa Justice Committee.
Naging choice po ninyo ngayon.
Ito kasi ang question ko
sa
sarili ko, no? Bagaman we are given 2 options, whether hindi idadaan or idadaan. Ang question ko, Pinky, is kung hindi idadaan, who will determine whether or not the evidence are actually attached to the complaint?
Yeah.
That is 1.
Yeah.
Who will determine whether or not the evidence is sufficient to support the impeachment complaint? Who will facilitate the distribution of the physical copy of the complaint, including the attachments, di ba? Who will issue the notice? Who will give the period of time for the respondent to answer the impeachment complaint? 5 to. Who will ensure that the members are given ample time to study the impeachment complaint before they vote on whether or not they will transmit it to the Senate, di ba? So, ang daming formalities, kung hindi mo yan i-refer sa Justice Committee, ang tanong, who will do these formalities? If not the Justice Committee, is the Committee on Rules allowed? Iba ang jurisdiction ng Committee on Rules. And if not the Committee on Rules, can the plenary take care of it? These are the questions that actually linger in my mind with the first option, no? Kaya, in my humble submission, really, bagaman may dalawang option na inilatag ang Supreme Court, the more feasible is the second option, idaan sa Justice Committee.
All right. Let's see what will happen in the next few days. Very interesting, of course. The weeks, sabi ko nga, nung you were still talking about the impeachment complaint against the president, I thought it was gonna take longer. Kala ko baka nga mag-overlap pa. But that being done, plenary na lang po. And then your team, the House Justice Committee rather, will be busy with this impeachment complaint against the Vice President. House Committee on Justice Chair, Congresswoman Gerville Luistro. Ma'am, pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you and good evening, TV.
That's On Point. Join us again tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. here on BNC, the Billionaire News Channel. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for watching.